Hey, ya, 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 ma, ya, ya. Da, 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 ma, ya, ya. Da, 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 ma, ya, ya. Hey, oh, ya, ma, ya, ma, ya, ya. Hey, ma, ya, ya, ma, ya, ya, ya. Hey, ya, 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 ya. Da, 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 da. Hey, ya, da, 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 da. Da, 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 hey, da, 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 da. Da, 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 hey, da, 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 da. Hey, ya, 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 ma, ya, ya, hey, ya, 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 ay, ya, ya, ay, ya, 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 da, 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 da. Hey, ya, 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 ma, ya, ya, da, 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 ma, ya, ya. Hey kids, what time is it? Time for Gezintahait Street. It is time for Gezintahait Street, and we didn't forget to plug in the microphone. The microphone forgot to bring its battery.
The alternator went on a microphone. The battery in the microphone was in Aishi's car. What happened?
So the first story will be, first go over L'Chatzkila or Rebirth. The Chabad Rebbe's made it a point, Pesach is coming up soon, we're supposed to learn about Pesach 30 days before the holiday, to use the most precious vessels of their households on the Seder table. The Seder table of the Rebbe Mirage was graced with over 50 candles in candlesticks. One of them was a 13-branch golden menorah that the Rebbe made with his own hands on the advice of a doctor who said he should work with his hands. He made a 13-branch golden menorah, and it was one of those 50 candles on his Pesach table. Rebbe Raj famously said, the world says, if you can't go under, then go over. And I say, first go over. Don't bother trying to go under. And this was the way the Rebbe Mirage conducted his affair. The household of the Alter Rebbe was very spare, and the Mittler Rebbe was even more Spartan. Even the Tzemach Tzedek did not conduct his household in an especially elaborate way, not even in his later years when he became rich. Even the Rebbe Rashab and the previous Rebbe did not always live in an elaborate lifestyle. Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. But the Rebbe Mirage, even when money was tight, always lived like the very rich of his generation. There's a well-known story of a chassid who offered the Tzemach Tzedek a gift of a beautiful, elaborate piece of furniture. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, I don't need it. And I put in parentheses, to accomplish my service. He instructed the chassid to give it to his son, the Rebbe Mirage, who would utilize it in his service. So even before he was Rebbe, his lifestyle conformed his declaration, first go over. Our Rebbe says that there are two kinds of tests in our lives. There's the test of riches and the test of poverty, God forbid. The test of riches, the Rebbe says, is better and more enjoyable than the test of poverty. Not just personally for the person himself, but also too to its effect on others. When a person is being tested with wealth, he gives a lot of money to other people. A rich person will give a little more and a little more, and finally a lot more to help another. Not so a poor person. We should apply the exhortation, first go over to ourselves, making big vessels in order to be able to give much. And I assume the Rebbe means making big vessels. We should extend ourselves in giving to others a little bit more than we can really afford. And when we travel this road, Hashem will help that our lives will be rich and expansive. Now there's another story that's attached to this one, and it's called The Chassidim Cried. And they said, why me? The previous Rebbe told this story. It occurred when the Rebbe Marash was in the town of Kishinev. He was there for Tishrei. Shortly after Rosh Hashanah, some rich and important members asked him to say a Hasidic discourse in public, since a lot of Jews were unable to hear the mimer the Rebbe had said on Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe agreed. It was decided that the people would convene in a large hall. And when that hall filled up, there was still a whole bunch of Hasidim that couldn't get in to hear the mimer. They were standing outside. The Rebbe then agreed to speak in the large courtyard. The bima was brought out with a special chair for the Rebbe. And in that discourse, which was called the prayer of a poor person, Tefillah La'onu, Rebbe Raj described how spiritual energy descends through the worlds, from giver to receiver, mashpia to makabel. For instance, Chachma gives to Bina, and the sun gives to the moon, which in turn shines upon the earth. And since this world depends upon and parallels the spiritual world, rich people give and poor people receive. Even though the poor person understands that there has to be this give and take, there has to be a giver and a receiver, he asks, why do I have to be the poor guy? Why do I have to be the one that's getting the money? Why do I have to be poor and not rich? I would rather be rich and give money than receive it. Then the Rebbe Marash added, he said, his question is a good and true question. And at this point, the whole crowd broke into tears. In fact, someone later said that he hoped he could cry like that on the day of his death. The previous Rebbe said his father, the Rebbe Rashab, told him that even the common expression used by the Rebbe Marash in a Hasidic discourse need to be engraved in one permanent. Specifically, the comment of the Rebbe that the poor person's cry of why do I have to be poor is a righteous complaint and must always be in front of one. The saying must give us power and strength to redouble our efforts in doing good to all in every way possible, especially to those involved in a life of Torah and mitzvahs. Our Rebbe asked, why especially a person who learns Torah and does mitzvahs you have to take care of? After all the Jews are brothers and children of Hashem. Furthermore, one who does not do what Hashem wants is even more in need of our help. Obviously, we need to help any and every person. At the same time, we don't want money going to a wrong place and giving nurture to the other side. Therefore, we should influence the person to the path of Torah and mitzvah. Do we have a song for the people?
Well, he was talking about just now L'chatchila Aribe, so maybe this wouldn't be a bad nikum to sing.
There.
Ya Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 hoy. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 mama, moy, nanam. Ya, ya, yo, la, mama. Ay, 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 oh, na, oh. Ah, mama, 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 oh, yeah, mama, ah, mama, mama. Oh, yeah, na, na. Hey, yeah, 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 oh, yeah, na, na, mama. Hey, yeah, yeah, la, la, mama. Oh, yeah, na, yeah, yeah, na. Ah, yeah, la, la, mama. Oh, yeah, na. Oh, yeah, na. Ah, mama, mama, mama. Oh, ay, ay, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah.
No, Ella,
Yeah.
you want to teach us what we learned, what I gave last time in your own inimitable way?
Yeah, in my inimitable way. I will do it. You just we jump right in, or you want to introduce first what we're talking about, so we can then you want to introduce where we left off, and then we jump off from there.
Okay, we're explaining how it is that Hashem is able to create something from nothing. and we're just telling the how of it. The actual what of it is nothing can be explained. It's only Hashem himself could do that, and there's no way to grasp it. However, the how of it can be explained, and that's what we've been doing. And we explained it through the metaphors that are used to explain how Hashem creates the world from nothing, which is a sun and a ray, how a soul enlivens a body, and the power of the actor in the act. And they all are basically illustrating the same point. And they're illustrating the point that there is this infinite God, and by contracting himself and pulling himself back, he's able to create a world with space and time, an apparent separate creation.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me share the thingy, Jiggy. Where's the paper?
You want it on paper?
No, I mean just I'm looking. I need to share it anyway, so all of our friends could see over
It's
here.
paragraph 7.
Here we go. Okay. Share. Okay. So now, ready? Here we go. To explain the above, it is necessary to introduce and explain the difference between two metaphors which describe godly energy. In other words, godly energy is not something that we can really understand. There's no two parallel. So therefore, we can't really understand it through one allegory. We need more than one allegory to understand it. And so one metaphor is flow, and the other metaphor is light. What is flow? Flow describes a progression of something from something, meaning an existing thing that is moving, that is flowing from here to there. And in flow of something from another something, there's two types of that. One is a physical entity, such as Wasser, and Wasser geht in a river, or something like this. The water, it's flowing from here to there, like a physical entity moving or changing form. For example, the water, it flows and it goes to Siberia and it becomes still water that is frozen. What was it? Ice. Yeah, ice lake. That's what I say.
From a picture into a glass.
Yeah, or a picture into a glass. Yeah, and not only that, it even shapes its form because maybe you remember this. Be like water, my friend.
See the lowest level?
No, be like water. It's
that's-
Baruch Lee. Baruch Lee. Bruce Lee says, be like water. Why? Because when water is in a pitcher, it becomes the pitcher. When it's in the glass, it becomes the glass. It looks like, he says it wrong, actually. Yeah, he says it wrong because it doesn't actually become the pitcher, but it takes the shape of the pitcher. Anyway, so that's one thing. And then the two is a flow of existing spiritual energy from level to level.
That's also something from something.
Yeah, it's also because it's already there. So what's an example of the, well, I think you'll give an example here, Batal, I think. Yeah, okay, let's go further.
I think he'll give an example.
Okay.
If not, I'll be able to.
Okay, good. An example of the physical something to something, the first one, is when one gives a coin to a pool person, or like the water which flows from one place to another, that the substance moved from place to place, and it makes a change in both the giver and the receiver. Because, like, for example, if I have a coin and I give it to you, now I have one less coin and you have one more coin. There's a change in me and a change in you. Well, it's not a change in us, but
That's physical something.
Yeah, the physical thing changes. But spiritual something to something is like a teacher who teaches a student. He doesn't give him an actual part of his intellect. He doesn't like reach into his brain in 1 second. Here you go. No, he doesn't do like this. He is giving him the intellect, but the teacher still retains the entire intellect. For example, when a teacher gives the student the intellect, he does not lose he gives the student the idea, and now he doesn't forget the idea because he gave it to the student. Right? So he didn't lose it in this way, right? So like this is like one who brings a candle into a house, that allowing the people inside to see what's in it. Like it says that the eyes of the wise are lit by halacha. So there's not a change really, because the teacher doesn't lose anything of his own intellect. Yes, the light from his intellect brightened up the room that is the brain of the Talmud, perhaps. But the teacher did not lose the intellect. He still knows this thing also. However, as opposed to something physical, like we said before, like the physical way is the coin. When you give the coin, you no longer have the coin. Nevertheless, there is a change because by the teacher, yeah. What's the change? Well, by the student, we know there's a change because he didn't know this idea, and now he knows this idea. But by the teacher, there's a change also. Because at the time he's teaching, he cannot be thinking about something else or teaching a different subject. He has to be focused only on this thing. Similarly, when his intellect is involved in any action, he cannot be thinking how to do another thing, something else. So the metaphor of flow, which illustrates something from something, is also a change in the giver, right? From before giving and to doing giving, even though after he gave it, he goes back to how he was before. He doesn't, not like a coin that's it. You gave the coin. The coin is goodbye, Charlie. Like my good friend Shimshon Stock said, goodbye, Charlie. You know, because you lose the coin. But this, he still has the intellect. However, at the time he is teaching, and indeed, like that way, I'm getting fancy late. And indeed, the student also, at the time he's learning from the teacher, really the same thing. He has to focus on what the teacher is saying. He can't be focusing something different. And the reason is that the giver and the receiver are both limited creations. And they are therefore on a comparable level, even though, of course, the giver, the teacher, is more elevated. That's why he's the teaching, right? And all the examples, like the one using his intellect to accomplish an action, the person and the action are both creations, right? They're both limited, and they are not able to do two things at once. So there is a change from before the action to doing and after, because doing the action, you cannot do something else. You have to focus on this.
And after?
Well, after
he can do something else.
Yeah. At the same time, the interesting thing is, it's just the opposite of with the coin. When the teacher when a person gives the coin, he loses the coin. The truth is, the teacher, we say, he goes back to after. It really is not the same after, because after he teaches, in truth, he's gained something. Because I think when you teach, your understanding of it yourself becomes bigger. So
And
really you gain
the
something.
guy after he gives the coin is also in a better shape than before he gave it.
Yeah,
But we have to do Ian and think it through.
we'll think about it. Maybe he bought one less cup of coffee or something. He focused on a mitzvah instead of a gashmis, so he must have gained something.
The teacher allegory is supposed to describe the spiritual flow,
yes.
but it doesn't describe what Hashem does at all, because everything
No,
is limited.
no, it's something to something. And
It's
Hashem
not a
is
Hashem
something to
spiritual. It's a down here spiritual.
Right.
It's spiritual because the guy doesn't lose anything when he gives it.
Hashem doesn't lose, he only gives.
No. Hashem is not something to something. Hashem is not a level of nothing from which he creates something.
This is
That's
both.
going to be
This
the metaphor
spiritual is
of
also talking about by people. It means like the spirit of man, not the spirit of Hashem here we're talking about.
Okay.
Or the sun. The sun, when
Yeah.
it gives to the moon, itself doesn't change. No, but that's going to be light.
That's light, yeah, that's not flow. Okay, anyways. So if I stay slave, we're talking about both by people. In other words, that a person, even by a person, there's a more physical aspect of a person, and there's a more spiritual. Lav dafke, we're talking godly, but the meaning more in touch with his neshama. That's even every person has levels of himself. It's more in touch with his neshama, and levels that's more in the physicality of the world. So this is the two types of this flow, but they both by a person. One is a more physical, more material, and one is more on a level that's more connected with the intellect, which, like we know, the intellect is more closer to the and the thought is closer to the neshama than the actions. So,
Are you thoroughly confused?
No, it's
good.
limited because we're humans.
Yeah.
Correct. That's why even the teacher is a word.
So all of this was an example. We was talking about flow. We was talking about the more physical type of flow and the more spiritual type of flow, two types of flow. However, there is now a muscle of light and how it effulges remind me, Bitzal. I keep forgetting what effulges means.
Outspread.
It spreads out.
Shefa.
Uforatzta.
Shefa
Ooh.
would be
Oh,
flow.
Leib, you're giving me the uforatzta. We're
Shefa
gonna do that
is
next.
flow. But there's a shephas or. It's not the same kind of outspread.
So how it spreads out, this is not something from something, but illustrates the dynamic of something from nothing. Because in the metaphor of flow, the idea to be taught by the teacher was included in the intellect of the teacher, but was not revealed separately in the teacher's intellect. In other words, it wasn't until he said it to the student, it's not recognizable as its own piece of intellect. It's just
to learn it.
No, the teacher knew it already. When
But
he
at one
started-
point in his life,
Yeah,
he had to
but
learn it.
But at the point where we're describing what flow is, the teacher is getting ready to teach the student.
Okay.
And in the intellect of the teacher, the great intellect of the teacher is included 2 and 2 is 4. But it's not recognized there because of the great intellect of the teacher. But in order to teach this student, the teacher contracts his intellect to be able to come out with this particular thing. He's going to teach the student. But it changes the teacher, even though he had the information originally, because he has to be involved with the student now. He went back to flow.
Yeah, he's talking about how also like, like if you ask me, hey, Gimel, what was that guy's name again that we saw? But until you asked me that, I wasn't thinking about it. It's in my brain because, well, maybe if I tell you, Leib, I can't remember, then maybe it wasn't in my brain. But if I tell you, Leib, that guy, I'll tell you who he was, I remember. So it's in my brain, but until you asked me that, it wasn't differentiable from the rest of my thoughts. It wasn't.
And while you're trying
it
to
was
think of
included
who
inside.
that person is, you can't do anything else.
Right, that's also. See, Leib, you got it.
And
Okay.
while I'm listening to your answer, I really can't pay attention to anything else.
Yeah, I know, it's a shame, right?
We're so limited.
I know. Anyways, so like 2 + 2 = 4 is part of the teacher's knowledge base, even when he's teaching English or advanced math, like trigonometry and these kind of things. But it wasn't realized as a particular thing for itself because it was included in the essence of intellect of the teacher, which has many ideas. In fact, it has all of his ideas in there. Right? Until he decides to teach it or until he brings it to the front of his mind. Yeah, but he knew it, it's there, yeah. Not so the outflow, so that's flow.
Yeah.
But not so the outflow of light, like the light of the sun, which before it leaves the sun, it did not exist in this form at all. The ray of the sun is not, there's no ray inside the sun. Like, oh, where was the ray before? It was inside the sun. Nope. Nopey dopey. It was not inside the sun, Lee. It did not exist over there. The ray, as it was included in the flame of the sun before it emerged, is no ray. What we are describing is the level of nothing. That's the nothing.
Ray didn't exist.
It didn't exist. It's something nothing. Therefore, it is unlimited and uncontained. It doesn't because it doesn't exist. Right? If it exists, then you have to face the payment how much of it exists and where it exists. Because exists something has to be here and it has to be now, and then it exists. But this thing, it wasn't before. It wasn't. So if it wasn't, it isn't. And if it isn't, it's a nothing and don't exist.
In other words, it's not situated in space and time.
Yeah.
As it's included in the flame of the sun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So not so when it shines into the atmosphere of the earth, then it becomes limited because that ray is over here and it's here now, according to the place on which it shines, right? So meaning that now that's a something. So it's a not something from a nothing because it didn't exist before, but now it's there.
But it didn't really become a something. It only becomes a something in the ones who receive the ray, perceive it as a something, because it's coming through a window, east to west, different colored windows. So the ones who perceive it see it as an existing something.
Yeah.
But the light itself remains nothing. It has no taste, no smell, no color, no nothing, because its source is in that level of nothing from where it comes. Some kind of a deal like that.
Sounds good.
So I believe he's basically describing what's called the infinite light. This ray that he's
Like
talking
the
about
Eire Insof.
in the object of the metaphor is the infinite light that's projected from the infinite one.
Okay. So
So
that's the Eire
itself
Insof.
remains nothing. However, it shines through vessels which to the receivers give it some kind of.
So in this case, the ray is the light of the infinite one, and the
The
sun would be
object.
like the infinite one, Kaviyachel, as
Yeah, right.
in a manner of speech.
The object of the metaphor.
Okay.
Well, really, the light of the sun is just a byproduct of the sun doing its thing.
Right, but it's only a metaphor, what we're talking about here. So the infinite
Well, maybe we're
light,
just a byproduct of
so
Hashem.
the infinite light is how Hashem reveals his infinite quality. He has a whole bunch of other stuff that he doesn't reveal. But what he does reveal, he reveals he's infinite. And how does he do that? From this ray, from the infinite light that comes out from him.
Yeah, Leib, that's what my wife told me when I couldn't clean the dishes properly. She goes, "Oh, you're a byproduct." Anyways, and also when it comes into the color of the windows, it appears to the eye to be colored, right? Because when light shines through a colored window, it looks like it's colored. This is something new that it was not there beforehand, while it was contained in the sun. In the sun, it wasn't a blue light or a red light or a purple light, right? There was not there. It was not limited, because if it's purple, it's limited to being purple. And it did not possess at all, right, the range of colors that it does now when it's coming through this window. Because, like we said, it didn't exist there at all. So if it didn't exist, how could it have a color? It's like, what color is that? You're like, what? What color is what? The thing that doesn't exist, what color is it? It's no color. It don't exist. So it's understood that even at the time it is contained by space and appears in colors, its unlimited simplicity has not actually changed. In other words, even though we see the light as purple, it's not actually a purple light. The proof is if you throw a rock through that window, if a rock rolls through that window, then it becomes then the light will become right back to its plain color. So clearly the light itself wasn't purple. The only change is that it's revelation to the vessels of the one who perceive it. When we're sitting here and we see it coming through a purple window, our eyeballs perceive it as being purple. And not only that, but if you have such an animal that is in this room with us that doesn't see purple, this animal will not see it as purple. But in itself, it is simple in its outspread, this ray, right? As when it was included in its source. Therefore, it can shine in multiple locations, right? Unlike we said, a teacher can only teach one thing at a time. The ray, however, can also do a lot of things at the same time. It can shine here. It can at the same time it can shine there.
It can look like different things to different people.
Yeah, it can shine in Tennessee also.
Different animals.
And it could give a person a suntan and grow a tree in photosynthesis, and it could light up 1 million houses and
It creates oxygen.
and cook an
Carbon
egg
dioxide.
and cook an egg on the sidewalk. And it never changes, because it's all done through a ray.
That's the muscle of all muscles.
Yes.
Well,
So
there's a
now,
problem with that metaphor.
Oh, it's got a flaw.
Well,
that's
I
why
don't-
this
the
other one
metaphor
showing.
does. Not the infinite light doesn't have.
Right, the metaphor.
The metaphor has a flaw that the sun does not enliven anything. In other words, it shines on stuff. That's what the sun does. That's why you need a metaphor of a soul enlivening a body.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
good. Wait 1 second.
It's supports an instrument that Hashem uses to sustain life. It doesn't make life.
no, he's got.
Not only that, it doesn't. It also doesn't enclose itself in the body.
The sun is involved in nature, it's part of the delicate balance of nature.
It's
that-
photosynthesis,
that
you're
sustains
right.
life.
But it's not a soul that enlivens them.
Right.
And the thing is, what you're describing here is different angles of how Hashem works all at once. It's not two separate things. It's Hashem does all this stuff at once, but it's described by particular metaphor. Because it cannot all be contained in a physical metaphor of how Hashem works.
Okay, so here we go. So therefore, the outspread of light from the sun is called nothing from something, because when
Nothing to something.
nothing to something, because when the ray was included in the sun, in the source, it did not exist. And even after it shines out from the sun, the ray itself is not limited to space and colors. The very same ray shines simultaneously through a blue glass to become blue and a yellow glass to become yellow, while in itself it remains simple and unchanged, and it doesn't exist separately from its source, where in its source, as we know, it does not exist at all. It's nothing. Only through its contraction into the space of the void, or dressing in colors, it acquires a new aspect of appearing to exist in a state to the one who it's revealed to. Otherwise, the receiver, the person who's perceiving it, perceives it in this state. But nothing has actually changed in the ray. It's not a different ray. It's not, oh, look, it became a blue ray now. So we see that something from nothing differs from something to something in two ways. The first way is that there is no comparison to the source of the ray and the ray, because it takes no place at all in the source. Meaning, something from something, there is a comparison between the giver and the receiver. Even the teacher is a very smart guy, but he has a comparison to the student. In fact, we can see this in the way that it could be that somebody teaching you something, you might be teaching him something else. Like, let's say somebody teaching you Mishnah, right? And you teaching him how to do a tax return. because if a guy tries to do a tax return with a Mishnah, he gets very confused because he might follow the wrong Tana, you know. Anyways, so that's the first one. But by this not something from a nothing.
No, okay.
Yeah, but that's a something from a something. But a something from a nothing has no comparison. It can't be compared to its to the source.
Why?
Because the ray, because it has no place there, it doesn't exist in it.
Right.
And that's the first difference between a something to something and something to nothing, and nothing to something. And also in the ray itself, there is no comparison between how the ray is revealed to the one who is perceiving it, to the receiver, right? Where it is limited in space and color, compared to how it left the source when it was unlimited and indescribable. So meaning, like the coin, when I give you the coin, it's the same coin. When I give you the intellect, there's a comparison between it, even though maybe you don't understand it quite as good, but it's comparable. Are you understanding it? Now I understand it. Whereas by the light, it's different. What left there is not, can't be compared to how it is in the way it's included in its source, right? Okay, so that brings. Hey, should we do Uforatsto?
You're almost by the end, and then you can do all the singing you want.
Yeah, but let's do Uforatsto, and then we'll do the other part. 1 second. Wait, Okay.
She is back.
Ready?
You were the guy who was late.
Hey you, for that's the Yamo, walking more, stopping more, wanting more, Yamo, walking more, stopping more, wanting more. Hey, Yamo, walking more, stopping more, wanting more, Yamo, walking more, stopping more, wanting more. Hey, oh, for that's the Yamo, walking more. Oh, for that's the Yamo, wanting more. Hey, oh, for that's the Yamo, walking more. Oh, for that's the Yamo, wanting more. Aho, you for that's the, oh, for that's the, oh, for that's the, oh, for that's the, oh, for that's the Yamo, walking more, stopping on Egbo, Yamo, walking more, stopping on Egbo. Hey, Yamo, walking more, stopping on Egbo, Yamo, walking more, stopping on Egbo. Hey, you for that's the Yamo, walking more. Oh, for that's the big number on Egbo. Hey, oh, for that's the Yamo, walking more. Oh, for that's the big number on Egbo. Aho, you for that's the, for that's the, for that's the, for that's the, for that's the Yamo, walking more, so big number on Egbo. Yamo, walking more, so big number on Egbo. Yama walking more, something on Egbo. Yama walking more, something on Egbo. Yes, baby. Okay, so now for the grand finale of the Chassidus. And the object of the metaphor of light above by Hashem is the way Hashem enlivens the created worlds and brings them into being. The dynamic of existence from non-existence, something from nothing, which this has two levels. One is the enlivenment of godly energy. This is to a ray of godly energy, light, which does not exist as it is included in its source. What does this mean? It does not exist as it's included
Like the
in its
ray
source.
of the sun as it's included in the flame of the sun. So there's only a flame there is no ray.
So in same thing that the light of Hashem also does not include,
It
does not exist in Hashem himself. And the second of all, even after it emerges, it is still unlimited, right? As the essence from which it spreads out is unlimited, meaning it is the light of what? The light of the infinite one. And therefore it is itself infinite. So therefore the light of the ray must be completely contracted and hidden from shining in its full force, its essential shine, because since the ray is infinite light, its revelation would negate the existence of separate limited worlds. We couldn't exist in such a light. And this contracted aspect of the ray is called the emptiness of the light. And from this emptiness, so this is the cholol.
It's called the rikunius of the or.
The emptiness of light.
And you could say it's the cholol. It's the empty, what they call the empty plate, which is not really empty. It's just empty because if it was revealed, we couldn't exist.
So it's a place where the revelation is held back. And this
Illustrating how the revelation is held back.
1 second, and this the contracted aspect of the ray is called the emptiness of the light, and from this emptiness is brought into being a limited worlds called something that they are created. That means he created this and he created this and this. That's limited things. Since the ray is Ein Sof, is infinite, even the smallest glimmer of this light would negate a separate limited existence. And since the ray of godly light is completely hidden, right? It's mitzumtzam, it's hidden. So a new light called a reflection or a generation light is enabled to shine, which finally is that light which enlivens the actual limited and separate worlds and creatures. Meaning that it's not that the light of the infinite one comes down and enlivens the being as it is. Because like, oh, here's Hashem, and he sends out the light and it enlivens the being. No, the being couldn't exist with such a light. So first there's a contraction, and the revelation is removed. So so to take away the revelation, and then it comes anew from this from the same light. It comes out just enough light just to make this being alive, but not enough to explode it. Let's face it.
You started off saying that this section saying the infinite light isn't included in Hashem.
Well, it's not included. It doesn't exist in Hashem.
It doesn't exist as separate from God.
Like the ray clearly is included in there, but it doesn't exist as its own entity. There's no ray inside the sun, but that's where it comes from. So it has to come from the sun.
And even though you call Hashem the infinite one, and the light is an infinite light, it is not infinite as infinite is thought of. Infinite is thought of, it starts someplace and spreads out infinitely. But by Hashem, there's no starting point either. So there's not any way to get your
How we thought
mind around.
infinite was that something has no end.
Right,
No end.
starts someplace and has no end.
That's why we
But
call it
that's
no end.
What we're talking infinite
Like
here.
mathematics, like numbers,
Yeah, right, okay, that's fine. But
I'll give you an
infinite-
example,
wait,
Lee.
Infinite here means that Hashem can do whatever he wants. He can hide himself or reveal himself. And that's the real quality of infinity. The scientists, when they say infinity, is like you say, oh, it goes forever. That's only one aspect. But real infinity is you can not go or you can go or do whatever you want. That's the idea.
It's also like in the world. We think, we call it, they say the universe is infinite, yeah. But in the meantime, if that's the case, how come you can point to the idea? If it's real infinite, you can't even point to the idea. That means I have a place in this infinite. In other words, this infinite is an infinite of one finite and finite and finite and an infinite number of finite things. By Hashem, it's not infinite finite things, it's mamish infinite. And if you don't understand that, good, because how could you? It's not something that a human could understand, that could fit in his mind, this idea. We can only get a little glimpse of it to understand it, how great it must be, but really we can't understand it. Anyways, but this emptiness of the light is not really an emptiness of godliness, Chas v'sholem. It is merely a hiding of the revelation to the recipient, because the recipient cannot receive such a thing. But the essence of the light is never removed, and it shines in the limited place just as it did before there was a creation. Really, even in the empty place, Hashem's light shines in its full force, because it has no change. In fact, the infinite light is what brings about its own contraction. In other words, the infinite light hides itself, and two, the limited creation that is brought about through the contraction. Right? He brings this about also, because since he is unlimited, he can do anything, and he can even limit his unlimitedness, and he can have himself in full force and yet be hiding himself without any actual lessening of himself.
And even more so, he's higher than both, limited and unlimited. It's something that can't be grasped or
Because unlimited is also a definition of some sort.
Right.
No, Leib, how about a good house in Genigin? Yeah.
We'll do hold over.
Oh, yes, good. Perfect.
Let me fix it.
Yo, ye na 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 na, mo ye mama. Oh, ye na 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 na, mo ye mama. Te ho ilara, oh, yo ye mama. Oh, ye na 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 na. Oh, ye mama.
Teyo ina na 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 na. Oh yeah, mama. Teyo ya la la. Ah oh yo yeah, mama. Teya ya ya ya. Me mama, me mama, me mama, me mama. Teya ya ya ya. Ay la la ya la la ya la oy. Ay ay ya ya. Me mama, me mama, me mama, me mama. De yo in aram. Oh, yo, yeah, de mama. Hey, yo, in na 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 yo, in na mo, ye de mama. Hey, yo, in na mo, ye de mama. Oh, oh, mama. Oh, mama. Oh, ayam, yo elaram, yo yedi mama, ya ayam, mama, hey ya ay la la ya oh, yeah, it's a great nigga, man.
Sign out there.
Yeah, ready? Hey,